Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be reacting to another video, another footy video. I'm so excited. I'm in the mood. I got the footy apparel. We got the hat, we got the Sharon, we got the shirt, we got the cat. We got everything. But before we get right into the video here, I want to do a quick shout out, thank a few people. One, I want to start off by saying thank you to James and James, Squirrel and Southern Skies. Thank you again for sending over the amazing care package with the shirt here and all the fantastic things you see behind me, as well as all the goodies and the snacks. It's awesome. I'm super excited to do some videos here coming up on trying those snacks. Also, I want to give a shout out to Ethan and Jake Martin. Both donated $10 to the GoFundMe. Right now, one of the community members, Squirrel, he started a GoFundMe page to try and get me out to Australia. So all my Australian viewers, hello. We're trying to get a GoFundMe so I can get out there, spend about a month out there, hit all the major cities, do a meetup in each one, go to some footy games, and do a bunch of cool stuff. So I'm super excited. So we're trying to get that going. Jake and Ethan both donated $10. So thank you so much. Squirrel's got $10 in there. And Southern Skies, James, you freaking legend, donated $100 today to the GoFundMe. So thank you so much. You guys are unbelievable. I'm seriously at a loss for words on this. This is amazing. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I wanted to say thank you. This community has been amazing. But we're going to jump into the video here. This is another video by Footy A to Z. Or, I said that right. I wanted to say Z, but I said Z. And this is going to be about the super flood. So shout out to Ethan. Again, he recommended this video. If you want to say hi to him, he's over in the Discord. But yeah, so Ethan recommended this video from Footy A to Z. So I'm excited to get into it. We're going to learn a little bit about this thing called the super flood. And it looks like it has to do with the Bombers and the Bulldogs. So I'm excited to get into this. Let's get the ears on and let's get going. All right, as always, the original video will be linked in the description. If you happen to like this video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It is right down there, and the bell notification. That way you can stay tuned in on when I post my videos. But let's get into it. The super flood, the night that changed the AFL forever.
No team has ever dominated an AFL season like Essendon in 2000. The Bombers won 21 home and away games, en route to a 60-point grand final win over Melbourne. In the process, they kicked 20 plus goals 12 times and averaged 131 points a match. The most overwhelming display of their scoring dominance coming in the qualifying final, where their 31 goals 12 was the highest ever total in an AFL VFL final and resulted in a 125-point belting of the 4th placed Kangaroos.
Hold up. 198 points. That is absolutely insane. Even in total, like the Kangaroos still got 71. So that is like a huge score total. And you guys were also telling me the VFL stands for the Victorian Football League. You guys were talking about that in the Discord yesterday. So cool. Good to learn that. So the highest final score in VFL AFL history.
This was a team with serious firepower. The backline was tough, the midfield exceptionally skilled, and the forwards were utilised by Kevin Sheedy to devastating effect. 8 players kicked 20 goals that season, led by spearhead Matthew Lloyd, who won the Coleman Medal with 109 goals, while Scott Lucas was more than handy with 57.
That's a lot of goals.
21 weeks for them to lose a game.
So this kind of reminds me right off the bat, because I remember there was one year the New England Patriots and the NFL, they went undefeated the whole season, and then they lost in the playoffs. I think it was to a wild card team, and it was just the craziest thing.
Face value, you'd expect the match that finally cracked the Bombers would be celebrated. A plucky Western Bulldogs side came into the round 21 match on the edge of the top 8. But not only did the Doggies cement a finals appearance that week, but they managed to overcome the rampaging Bombers and cause one of the greatest upsets in league history.
This is a lot like the NFL game.
As great as the story is, however, the match itself has been overshadowed by just how the Bulldogs did it, and is now considered one of the most infamous in the AFL era.
Okay.
The challenge to coach Terry Wallace and his team was simple. How do you stop Essendon's relentless scoring ability? The answer Wallace arrived at was straightforward enough and away from prying eyes, as the Bulldogs trained the tactic that would become known as the Super Flood at the home of their then VFL affiliate side Werribee.
Super flood.
Flooding is the decision to push large numbers of players into your team's defence. As a tactic, it is almost as old as Australian football itself. In fact, centuries ago, Thomas Wills, who was a member of the Melbourne Football Club committee
Mr. Wills,
and responsible for writing the game's first rules in 1859, was reported to have instructed some of the teams he captained to push large numbers of players back in defence when kicking against a strong wind.
this is interesting. We had another video, so if you haven't checked it out yet, we did a little video on reacting to Tom Wills here. So this is cool. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Flooding kind of seems self-explanatory. You just kind of, you flood, I guess either, you could probably have offensive flooding too if you were, at the cojones. But yeah, so you just kind of flood your back end with tons of players to make it really impossible for the Bombers to score because they were such a high scoring team. Okay, it seems pretty straightforward.
Throughout the 1990s, a version of the tactic would come back into fashion in Sydney, where Rodney Eade would coach the Swans to a 96 grand final appearance by instructing his players to push back a line when they lost the ball, essentially creating a 9-man defence.
Okay.
This tactic had the added bonus of affording Tony Lockett plenty of space to work with when the Swans counterattacked. The Super Flood, however, was something different entirely. The Age dramatically called it the greatest flood since Noah. As many as 14 dogs stood guard in the defensive arc, forming a wall the Bombers could neither get through nor over. The focus of the Bulldogs
was on
16 taking
players?
away any and all space from the Bombers' dangerous forwards by
15.
piling numbers into the defensive 50. Almost immediately,
Wow.
Dermot Brereton, calling the match for Channel 7, described what was happening. They're just flooding back inside 50. There'd be 15 blokes inside the defensive half for the doggies. The Bombers
That's
were rattled
interesting.
early. The Bulldogs kicked the first 2 goals, and it took a dubious 50-metre penalty on the wing that brought Steve Alessio inside 50 to give Essendon their first.
So it basically they're putting their whole team on defense just to clog up the space, because if there's not space, it makes it very hard to score goals. Because I've been watching the footy games recently, and when it's a real cluster, when there's a lot of people, it gets very chaotic, and it can be there's a lot of barriers to you kicking the goal. So taking away all the space, all right, that's a good plan.
The space afforded by the flood allowed the Bombers to control the centre of the ground, but many of their attacks ended in an intercept mark.
Right.
Essendon midfielder Jason Johnson later expressed his side's frustrations to The Age. You got the ball in the middle of the ground and looked forward, and all you could see was a sea of Bulldogs players and no space. Dermy was rattled too. When asked what he thought Essendon should do to combat the Bulldogs' tactics, all he could manage was, they've just got to wait for them to tire. Kevin Sheedy,
not
however,
a good tactic.
had other ideas. With the Bulldogs regularly having 5 players loose in defence, the Bombers decided to send their own players forward, including All-Australian full-back Dustin Fletcher, to start manning up the defensive spares. Shots of the Essendon 50 at centre bouncers regularly showed a spare Bulldog or two, clumped in with 7 or even 8 pairs of players.
So does that just mean it's like a completely wide open field on the other end? Because it seems like, the Bulldogs got their whole defense, or their whole team on defense, and the Bombers can't manage that. So they start bringing up their defense to attack, and now you just seems like you got a whole wide open back end.
Eventually, Essendon clawed their way in front during the second quarter, largely thanks to Michael Long's precision kicking and Fletcher's move to the forward line. He was able to leap over the Bulldogs' extra defenders to mark Long's perfectly weighted kicks, or simply find space further up the ground, mark the ball in the centre square, and send it soaring 70 metres over the heads of the Bulldogs, who had flooded the defensive 50.
Wow.
The Bombers
So if you got the long
led his
kick,
team scoring with 3 goals, emphasising the sheer strangeness of that night. As halftime,
see, the interesting thing with that is it works, right? If you're the Bombers, that's the Bulldog strategy doesn't really work if you can kick those long bombs and be accurate every time. But that's a lot to rely on, and you're kind of relying on a few players to be able to win the game for you if you're the Bombers. And I guess that's a risk the Bulldogs were willing to take.
Approached with the Bombers in front, the question was raised: does Terry Wallace rethink what he's doing? As Brad Johnson was collected off the ball on the stroke of half-time, tensions caused by the confused and fiery match saw the teams scuffle briefly before heading down the race, 45 apiece at the main break.
All right, it's tied, huh?
Wallace persisted with his flooding for much of the third quarter, but Sheedy and his champion Bombers had begun to figure it out, their midfielders collecting the ball in space and drawing defenders to them before releasing handballs over the top. Where Essendon had not taken a single mark inside 50 in the first quarter, they recorded 10 in the third. And as Justin Blumfield goaled at the start of the last, the Bombers went 21 points ahead and seemed poised to extend their perfect season to 21-0.
So they kind of figured out the Bulldogs strategy, or they figured out a way to break down or counter their strategy. They kind of were drawing the defenders out because you got so many people in the defense, and if you can kind of pull them forward and open up space, I think the key thing was space there.
Bulldogs flicked the switch. The numbers in defense were reduced, and perhaps most notably, a young Nathan Brown, who'd been arguably the Dogs' best, and Chris Grant, who sat loose in the back 50 for most of the game, was sent forward. Grant kicked 2 final quarter goals, including a left foot snap from the boundary line to put the Bulldogs back in front in the closing minutes, after which the flood resurged, and the Bulldogs started the final centre bounce of the match with a 2-man forward line.
Jeez.
The Dogs kicked 5 goals to 1 in the last quarter to run away with an 11-point win, although Rowan Smith booted the final goal after the siren as Essendon players were already walking off.
So that's crazy. That really blows me away. So you got the flood, you got the defensive stronghold, as the Bulldogs, and then it works for the first half, or most of the first half. It succeeds because even if you come out tied, you stopped Essendon from offensive rain. How many points they scored in that other game. So by coming out tied, you got to take that as a win, I think. And then when you go into the third quarter, Essendon sees obviously that they have a flaw, but that was very clever by the Bulldogs to also switch it straight to offense, right? And just go straight forward on offense. And then last minute kind of go defensive right as they have the lead again. And it just psychologically, it's got to mess with you if you're Essendon.
The scoreboard read 12-9-81 to 14-8-92.
Wow,
the
so
Super Flood
close.
had extinguished Essendon's perfect season.
Wow.
Critics
That's a
have
crazy
since
score.
questioned how successful the actual Super Flood was. Essendon captain James Hird was out injured, Damien Hardwick was carried off in the opening minutes and didn't return, and it took a miracle goal and multiple late Essendon mistakes for the Bulldogs to snatch the win. Yet, the answer to the question of whether Wallace's tactics had been effective is clear to see. Despite dominating inside 50s 68-41, the Bombers' score of 81 was their lowest of the season, and a massive 50 points lower than their season average. The Flood itself might not have won the game in the last quarter, but it kept the Bulldogs in the contest long enough for them to steal it late.
See, that was what I was trying to get to. That's a key thing. It may not have been what won the game, but it succeeded in what it was meant to do. It was meant to stop Essendon from scoring a lot of goals. It was meant to keep them from scoring 198 points, right? And you got the win, so that's awesome. But you kept them at their lowest score of the season, and that kind of proves that the theory in itself worked.
Wallace and his contemporaries continue to draw criticism for this defensive focus. Football fans during the 80s and 90s had become accustomed to high scoring,
hate us because they ain't us,
spectacular
bro.
matches, dominated by key forwards like Lockett, Dunstall, and Ablett Sr. This style peaked in the offensive power of the 2000 Essendon team. But that night at Colonial Stadium, the 45,000 fans in attendance were treated to a taste of what football was to become over the next 2 decades. Tactically, this is at a new level tonight, Raritan remarked, marvelling, "There's 32 players inside 50 there, or 16 players inside defensive 50. I've never seen anything like it."
Yeah, that's cool. That's crazy.
It was a match played 20 years before its time. A superior team seeking to pick apart an opponent's highly defensive setup, using pinpoint kicking and hard running. Today, the modern football fan doesn't bat an eyelid at seeing all 36 players within a kick of the ball.
Oh, so it's common now,
Wallace
right?
didn't start this defensive movement, but his success in Melbourne's Docklands that night was noted by footy tacticians Australia-wide. Its legacy now clear for all to see in today's defensive mindsets. Teenage Robert Murphy played just his 3rd game that night, and his recollection for the Freedom in a Cage podcast captures the legacy of this one game of Australian rules football.
So real quick, it kind of almost seems like that game is, if you sum it up, it's the immovable object versus the unstoppable force. It's the real test of offense versus defense, and I love that. That's really cool.
I was a young, naive kid, just turned 18, and Terry Wallace pulls out the Super Flood in the team meeting. And even then I knew, this will be radical.
Yeah, there you go. That's cool. All right, that was such an awesome video. I love learning like the more detailed sides to sports, and especially to the AFL now that I'm getting into it. You know, I'll tell you what though, if you haven't checked out Footy A to Z, please do. They have some amazing videos. They put a ton of work into them. Great channel, great guys. So link is in the description. Be sure, again, go watch their stuff. Go give them a like. Go give them a subscribe. They definitely deserve it. They make some really awesome stuff, and I love watching and kind of taking a look, and it's really helped me get into a better understanding of the AFL. So I really appreciate it. And if you like this video, hit that like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification. You stay tuned in on when I post my videos. But this is really cool. So that's very interesting that that you have such a unique tactic that just kind of halted and stopped the gears of the mighty Bombers, you know, because this is that undefeated season. And it does kind of remind me a lot of that Patriots game, or that season where they went undefeated and they lost to the wild card, and I don't remember who it was. It is slipping me off the top of my head, and I don't want to say the wrong team, so I'm not going to. But anyways, we have a live stream coming up very soon. In the community tab, if you check it, I have the details on when that will be. It is going to be for the St. Kilda Essendon Bombers game this weekend. So again, we're gonna go watch the Bombers. We're gonna see about the Bombers, and I'm super excited. Again, you know, I got some AFL gear. I'm gonna be rocking the Sharon. I'm going to be doing some videos here probably next week, maybe. We'll see. Of me kicking that guy around. I'm going to try and find a football field around here, a park to go boot that thing. So I'm super excited. Thank you again so much for everybody that's been contributing to the channel. You guys are amazing. Huge shout out to Southern Skies. Huge shout out to Squirrel. You guys are the best. If you haven't yet checked out our Discord, the link is in the description. I highly recommend you do. It's where the community, we all get together. It's a super cool place. You can chat with me in real time and everybody else who's been contributing to the community. And if you have video recommendations, that is the best place to give them to me. So again, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Peace, love, and we'll see you later. Bye.